All right, so okay, so we're live now. All right, so wanted to bring Angry Mgtow in to discuss this because, as I said in my last, I uploaded a video this afternoon, and I've told people that we were going to do a hangout today, so we should get some people in for this. But me and Angry Mgtow were basically talking about last night. We were talking about how, you know, in the occultic knowledge, which is the perspective I want to look at things, is that we seem to see that there is some sort of connection, that has been going on since the beginning of this earth. There's these cycles, they call them cycles, that go on where basically a lot of the same behavior, a lot of the same kind of things that go on in the world take place in the exact same time. So Lilith, which was basically a woman that hated all of mankind, she was the daughter of I think Ahab. And when I mentioned the biblical stuff, I'm not talking about the Christianity sense of the thing, because a lot of that is not what people think it is. The Bible's a lot darker than people think it is. That's why occultists study the Bible, because it's in code. Everything is in code. And basically, Angry Mgtow, I mentioned in my video that what we're dealing with is that this is a battle between the forces of good and evil. And when we look at this, we live in an inverted world. You think about it like the pentagram. The pentagram is the inversion of the star. And that is nothing more than a reflection of the inversion taking place in our world. Everything that we see today is inverted. The police don't do what they say they're going to do. The politicians don't, most of the time don't say they do what they're going to say they're going to do. Teachers, institutions, government, all these different things are nothing more than a reflection of the inversion, this perversion, when we're looking at this good versus evil. And what I came to the conclusion to, and I'd like you to chime in here on this, but what I came to the conclusion to is basically that, what we're dealing with is something much greater than surface level stuff. Because when we're looking at man and woman, particularly in this inverted world we live in today, it is nothing more than the reflection of the perverted way of doing things. This is why when you go and you get yourself a high-paying job, you have to do perverted things to get there, because it's the inversion of the right way to do it, because this world's run by evil. And so everything, if the environment is sick, this is why I'm going my own way. If the environment is sick, you're not going to be able to raise people properly in an inverted and perverted environment. And so the women are nothing more than a reflection of that. Now, getting to the point, Lilith, Angry Mgtow, I wanted to know what your thoughts on this were. But I think, when we're dealing with this, let's take the devil, for example. He works through many different ways. It's not just one person, at least that's my opinion. And one of the ways is via Lilith and all the other people. It's not just one person, it's multiple tools being used. This is why we get the term, the devil wears Prada. Well, where does that come from? The other thing I wanted to bring up, which was this whole transsexual agenda. It's turning men into women, because I come to the conclusion that, in my opinion, I think the devil's a woman. Angry Mgtow, what are your thoughts on this? Where, we were discussing Lilith. Do you see that there is some kind of reflection here of Lilith and the behavior of women today? And I didn't want to make that a straight answer question, but just give me your thoughts on this. Have you ever done any kind of research into the occult before? Do you know much about this stuff?
From what I understand about Lilith, Lilith was supposedly the first demon, and Lilith, she gave birth to many of the demons on earth, something along those lines. And I forget if God either killed her children or threatened to kill them. But there were a lot of things regarding that. And when you look at the story of how Lucifer fell from heaven. Lucifer sat next to God, and Lucifer was taken with vanity. Lucifer was the most beautiful angel in heaven. Why would you describe a man having extreme amounts of vanity, and being to the right of God, and having all this power. That doesn't sound like, and it was only second to God. That sounds like a queen. That doesn't sound like a prince. That sounds like a queen, so, someone who is taken with their own vanity. There will either be a very effeminate male, or it would be a woman, and it sounded like a woman. And it sounds like, she was next to God, but she wanted to be God. God explained, "You can never be me," and she basically threw a fit. She got her sympathizers and said that, he's not being fair, and he basically kicked them all out of heaven. He kicked her out. He kicked the her manginas out that were supporting her. Basically, she ended up on Earth, and it was on Earth that she tempted. She came in the form of a snake, and she tempted Eve, and she said to Eve, this is how she got Eve to eat the fruit. Adam was not interested in eating the fruit. She was able to tell Eve that the reason why God keeps it for himself is because he doesn't want you to eat it, is because if you eat the fruit, you will be just like God himself. And so immediately Eve ate the fruit, thinking that she would become like God. She knew. Now, the funny thing is, the serpent knew that this line would not work on Adam. Adam was not foolish enough to not only believe this, but to dare think that he could be God, he could replace God. And it was only until his wife he sinned as a result of his wife. He allowed her to lead him into sinning. That's when that happened. But ultimately, it was women who ended up going to that first. And you can see a relationship between women and snakes and women and Lucifer. And I definitely think that there's a correlation between women and Satan. I do believe that Satan is a woman, that Lucifer is a woman.
I wanted to share something interesting that I just thought of. Gosh, I wish I could screen share. For some reason I can't. But there's something interesting about something I found out not too recently ago, the other night. Women are made up of XX chromosomes. Okay, XX chromosome. The mark of the beast is the letter X, and it also has to do with the planet Saturn. I'm not really going to get into that right now because that is a rabbit hole that I don't think my subscribers are ready to go down yet, and I really don't even know how to explain it. But I'll just say that there's something going on the fucking planet Saturn, and these people worship it. That's all I'm going to say. But the symbol for that is the cube, which is the letter X. When you draw that around the line, that goes into occult symbology. What I find interesting, Mgtow, is that, it said in the story that the fallen angels came down and bred with the women of Earth.
Mhm.
Well, what is that? That's eugenics. That's breeding a different species with another. That's what that was eugenics. This is what I find interesting. Okay, so women are made up of XX chromosome. The mark of the beast, at least the letter, is symbolic of the letter of death and evil and the mark of the beast, essentially. Okay, so they're made up of XX chromosome. They bred with the fallen angels. Eugenics, hence the word eugenics. There's something going on here that I think that a lot of people might not have even begun to think about. I think what we're dealing with is that women are inherently descendants of the fallen angels or demons, whatever you want to use the context of. I'm not just referencing the Bible here, and I'm not speaking in the context that most people understand it either. But I think what we're dealing with here is that, women are these descendants of these fallen angels because it's said that they came down, bred with the women of Earth, and then they have an XX chromosome. It's interesting. It's very interesting. And me and you talked about last night. We talked about the whore of Babylon, and I showed you all those pictures of those celebrities in red dresses. Well, that's very true, and it's symbolic of something. It's symbolic of Lilith and or the whore of Babylon, and that has to do with the inverted side of the devil being a woman. Devil wears Prada. Dude looks like a lady. it's all an inversion. Because let's say, for example, if you were to hide your identity, if you were a spy or something, you would probably go, okay, well, I'm a man, but I'm going to dress up as a woman because it confuses people's identities. The same thing can apply with how an evil faction like the devil would do something by perverting or inverting, just like the symbol of evil, or Satanism, which is the inverted pentagram. What are your thoughts on, the possibility that, like I've said, the XX chromosome, the letter X, I don't know how much, I know that it's kind of hard to explain these things to somebody who hasn't actually looked into it, but if you have looked into, just type in Google letter X, mark of the beast, and just look at how many celebrities and all these different people, mainly women, use the letter X in their symbol. Do you think that I'm far reaching in that statement?
Not
And what are your
necessarily.
thoughts
No,
on that?
I don't think you're far-reaching. Honestly, I can see where you're coming from, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the women are offsprings of the fallen angels. It could also just signify that women were made with the same nature as Lucifer. Just like God was made in the nature of man. Just like man was made in the nature of God, it wouldn't be surprising to know that women were made in the nature of Lucifer. Lucifer being an angels, and many angels having, representation of an X. There could be correlations that would lead back to that. The lineage of Lucifer, is marked by the X, and women have that X. It definitely that would make sense.
Yeah, I just find that kind of interesting, because there seems to be they're not, I wouldn't call them coincidences, because there's much more to coincidence than just saying it looks like it happens a lot. I mean, I think there's much more to it than that. But, I just have come to the conclusion that, in my own little independent research into this kind of stuff, that nothing, number one, is as it seems. Everything is completely fake. And, we live in the analogy that we always bring up is the Matrix. We live in this artificial world, and everything just seems to not fit right. What I find kind of interesting about all this is that when we look at Lilith, when we look at your modern day women, I see that there are, very similar qualities. And when we look at Lilith, when we look at your modern day women with a lot of the narcissistic and sociopathic behavior, a lot of it begins, the pieces of the puzzle begin to put together when you can look at it from that kind of perspective. And I think that, Lilith is very much a key component to when we see in the feminist agenda, because it would only make sense. And when we see this stuff has been going on since biblical times. I mean, I think that's the whole point of why it's even in there to begin with. And it's a cycle. There's this thing in the zodiac, they call it, it's the wheel, which represents a cycle. And each of those is a different zodiac sign. That all that has to do with is that the earth comes and goes and changes. There's birth, and then there's death. There's yin, and then there's yang. There's good versus evil. It's called the cycle. And that has to do with this matrix, this disorder that we seem to have, we seem to keep falling ourselves into. That is one of the biggest formulas we have to try to figure out in all this. I wanted to know, because you were doing a podcast with Turd Flinging Monkey, and you guys were discussing artificial intelligence and the sexual aspect of artificial intelligence. I wanted to get your take on that. We see all this technology advancing. What do you see the social dynamics between men and women? What do you see the battle plan being when this kind of stuff kicks off, if it were to kick off? What do you see happening?
I see the social dynamics between men and women increasingly fading, and men and women, and specifically men, deviating away from women, focusing on, sexual gratification through machines, or losing all desire for sex. If you look at the herbivore men in Japan, they are reporting that they have no desire for sex at all, and about half of all men between the ranges of 18 and 40 are virgins in Japan. So that's quite a significant portion. And we're seeing that behavior spreading over to the West. And I honestly see in the future the dynamics of things with technology improving, the potential for artificial wombs and sex bots, which will be called companion bots. I see men and women essentially losing the ability to communicate with each other. I don't see things going very well for women. Don't honestly, I think that there could come a point where women end up being kind of like an endangered species, kept in a concentrate, kept in a special reservation. You know, turd flinging monkey in our chat, he pointed out that in the future women might become something like a type of like special, like only the very wealthy men will have a woman. They'll be like a collector's edition, like, you know, like you'll only very wealthy men will have a real life woman, and the average men they'll actually they'll have, what do you call those things, they'll have like sex bots or, you know, VR porn and stuff like that to get their sexual gratification. But women will basically form harems and only be with the richest men. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know how if it's going to be like that, but I do think harems are going to begin forming, and I do think that there's going to be such a large division amongst men and women in the future that they will literally forget how to speak to each other. We're entering a time where both men and women just won't speak to each other anymore. Like, they will not speak to each other. They will avoid each other. Men will specifically avoid women. Women will chase men, and men will continue avoiding them. That's just literally how it's going to be. And, you know, a lot of government control will be involved in all of this.
Yeah, yeah, I think so as well. You know, it's just the social dynamics of the way things are going right now is just you know, like I said, if you have a sick environment with sick people in it and you're doing sick things and perverted things, you know, how in the world, it's like trying to raise a sunflower seed in a garbage dump. I mean, I guess it would thrive pretty well, but you get my point, right? So, but I mean, if things around us are so sick, and you know, even people, you just go outside and you look at people today. People are such a mess. I mean, they really don't know what the hell is really going on outside the doorstep, and you know how that could possibly how that could actually work itself out. I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. I don't see how it would, because you have to have you have to have the right conditions in order to raise kids right, raise women right, raise the world right. You know, and you can't do that when we have all this shit going on with all this crap in the media and all this stuff. But I think it all just ties into the natural. Again, I say it's the cycle of things. You know, things in the beginning, whether it be politics, whether it be health, whether it be old age, young age. You know, you buy a car, you don't buy a car, or you have a car for a long time, it eventually will burn out. And I think we're reaching a point, a crucial point in all this. You know, this is why we talk about the collapse. This is, you know, that's the whole thing. It's the big deal, the end of the world, right? You know, the whole thing that you know, that we discuss it as. And so to see all of these things unfolding, I think what this all has to do with, in the end, with, you know, is the devil a woman? Is she not a woman? What is the context of Lilith being involved? In the bottom line, I think everything is just a reflection, you know, and on this level of things, it's nothing more of an inversion of the way things are supposed to be. You know, just like in that Garden of Eden story, Eve eating the fruit, and then she tempted Adam with it. And then because of that happening, the rest of the world had to suffer. And I think you said something very interesting. You know, you said that, you know, it's almost like Eve was sent as a test, and when we failed the test, we were punished by her. It's just an interesting way to look at things, because, again, it all has to tie into this inversion of the natural order of things. And I think it's as simple as that. I think we try to overcomplicate things a lot in the Mgtow community, and simply because we just don't know enough information about it, so we're trying to figure it out. So that's why I wanted to bring this chat into kind of like a different perspective, kind of more of an occultic perspective. because that has to do with hidden knowledge, and at least as much as you can get your hands on, at least. But I think it's just a matter of writing this out. I think as men, whatever the future may come, whatever might happen, we're just going to have to deal with it, because we really can't control anything beyond what we can do for ourselves in terms of something of that magnitude actually happening. What do you think on that? And also, feel free to add anything else. Any kind of different kind of stuff you're working on or whatnot.
I think you make very valid points. It's substantially difficult to really perceive the true magnitude of things in relation to what you're explaining. And I think that it's important that we take a critical look at what's happening and truly ask ourselves, how this stuff is interrelated, and if people are looking at this objectively. And I think it's critical that we all look at these points objectively, because, you know, I agree with what you're saying, but I can also see why some people would be cautious to delve into these subjects, because again, when you start talking about things that go into religion or a bit mythical, it can become questionable. I think that at the end of the day, it's vital that we open our minds up to things such as the occult, and opening up, and creating a place where it's safe to have those discussions about these topics that are often considered fringe. And when you look at where the world is heading, I can definitely say that I think the world is not heading in the greatest of directions. I think that the world is headed in a very bad direction. It's being headed up by very evil people. The elites are very, very evil people, and I think that that's something that we have to be aware of as we go our own way. We have to be aware that there are very destructive people out there who would like to do us harm, and we have to know know that they're there so that we can resist what they're doing.
I would 100% agree. Yeah, I mean, it's just, basically the message that I wanted to give to people is that nothing really works the way you think it does, and that you need to look into other things and open your mind to any possibility and every possibility about, because there's so much more to the table that we're not seeing, and that's my passion, is to figure out what that unseen is, wherever it might lead me, no matter where it might lead me. And so I just wanted to give that as an example of people to open up your mind and just explore whatever possibility, because in the end, what is that saying? It goes, even, or when I think I know everything, I actually know nothing. Something like that. There's a saying that goes like that, and it's true, because it shows you how little people really know about stuff. And if we really knew what was going on, it would be so much more different than what people could ever possibly imagine. And that's why this stuff is so taboo to talk about, because for so long people have been ingrained into believing a certain way or thinking a certain way. It's a huge jump. It's a really big jump to dive into something like this and have an open mind, because it's a really crazy path to go down, just simply because nobody has actually seen these things or actually been exposed to it. We're almost out of time here. Probably got about 5 more minutes left. With that being said, I wanted to ask you if there's any other things that you wanted to bring up with this, or any other work that you're doing that you want to tell people. Feel free to.
I mean, aside from this stuff, I think that there's other stuff that I'm looking at, and a lot of it has to do with the things that are happening around us that we don't want to we don't really want to talk about. A lot of the cynical things that the government is doing, and there's also some theological things that we can explore, because I definitely think that there are things happening around us more than meets the eye. It's just a matter of, of allowing ourselves to see beyond these perspectives. It's like until science can prove things, people choose not to believe in them, and it's kind of absolutely ridiculous. It's kind of sad. I mean, I could see people who, God could appear right before us, and people would want scientists to verify that it's him.
Yeah, that's true. I like that. I like what Louis C.K. said. He's like, if God landed in the middle of Times Square, people would probably be taking pictures of it, going on Twitter, taking pictures of it and posting it on Twitter. I mean, that's the sad state of affairs.
It is the
Jesus is
absolute
trending.
truth.
He's trending on Twitter. It's ridiculous.
Jesus is trending on Twitter. Oh my gosh.
That's what they would say. That's what would happen because people would be freaking sticking their freaking phones in their faces while something miraculous happens. They wouldn't even realize it. But whatever. I just don't care anymore about it. I've had enough of people's ignorance and stupidity. I just can't take it anymore. I just rather choose to do my own thing, and that's what going your own way is about. I think that's all what most of us guys have come to the conclusion to, is that nothing here is fun anymore. The novelty of a lot of this crap with women has worn off, and it's not fun anymore. And you know what? We're going to go do something else. And it's as simple as that. If something's not working, there's no point in continuing to keep doing it. But with that being said, I want to thank Mgtow for coming on and discussing this, open people's minds to a different perspective of what could be possible, what could be going on here. And I suggest you check out my my video that I did this afternoon that I recently posted, my recent posted video. And I discuss more about, the more occultic way of what my opinion is that's really going on. Angry Mgtow, final thoughts?
My final thoughts is people need to be more aware and more open to seeing different things that are happening and thinking outside of the box, because there's a lot of things that you could learn and that'll help you to understand what's happening, but you have to be willing to see beyond the scope that you've been taught to see from, or see within.
I agree, absolutely. Alrighty, well, I want to thank Angry Mgtow for coming on. I want to appreciate everybody for joining in and listening to us talk. Hope everybody has a good one, and take care.